Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Aspire32, and we are again back with another important podcast. And the speaker is not new. He has made one podcast with us about residency, which has been really famous. And I welcome Dr. Mayank to Aspire32 on this new podcast, which is about the Master of Healthcare Administration.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. I had a great experience having the podcast in between the past, and I'm looking forward to the new one today. I hope I'll be able to share some information that will be helpful for all the viewers.
So before going ahead, Dr. Mayank, last time he was doing his residency in Rochester, and today he is working as a dentist in the Cleveland after his residency program, and he finished his Master of Healthcare Administration from Houston, and this is something new as an opportunity for many students, and we'll try to understand about this important topic from him today. So my first question, Dr. Mayank, to you is that when you thought of going to US, I'm sure there are so many other options like residency, DDS. Why did you think of this option at the beginning?
I think Dr. Suresh, you started with a right on the bull eyes. Like the question is. So I think that's good important questions, and a lot of people they ask me why did I choose MHA. There are a lot of options. You could do MHA, MPH, MBA in healthcare, Master of Science. So my mindset was that I wanted to choose an option which will give me as a backup option. I wanted to do something which if nothing works out for me in US and if I have to come back in India, I'll at least have some kind of a second career. Also, when I was thinking about MPH versus MHA, because that time a lot of people were doing MPH, I looked into the curriculum very deep inside, and I was trying to understand what does my personality fit into. I think I'm a person more of who believes in business side and entrepreneurship, leadership, those kind of the stuff compared to the research that time. So I thought like that would be a better fit for me. That time I never really thought about what is it that I need to do to make my way up for the dentistry. A lot of people they also ask like, okay, how are you going to connect the MHA with dentistry? If this is something that you're going to ask in the interview. But at that time, I always wanted to do something which, because you're investing good amount of money, around like $50,000, $60,000. And I not only I just wanted to do it because to come to US or to get the visa, but I also wanted to do something that in case if things doesn't work out, at least I'll have something to at least recoup the money and have something as a secondary career, because MHA does have a very good career, whether it's in US or India. In India also, there are a lot of big hospital chains, and they're looking for the people, who can manage and having a clinical background that helps. So I think overall, that I found that should be a better fit for me, and it was fulfilling all my goals and purposes that I was trying to do my master's in.
Yeah. So I'm sure this helped you for your residency in your later stage of application in Rochester. But okay, you decided that I want to do it, and as you said that this was like better like a backup plan. But I'm sure applying to these universities, getting to know the requirements may have been slightly difficult initially. But how did you decide about the university, and who helped you with this application, or you did everything on your own?
So that's this is very tricky because at that time I was still in India, and to understand whenever you're looking for any university, they will always use the word like credit hours, and they will say, this program is 56 credit hours. So I was like, okay, what does it mean? Like, am I only going to attend and spend so much money for 56 hours? And some people will say, oh, your one course is like 4 credit hours or 3 credit hours. I'm like, okay, so the entire course that I'm going to do is 3 credit hours. So it was really challenging to understand these terminologies. And many times you don't get a straightforward answer. Like, sometimes you want, okay, how much time is going to take to complete this course? And they always give you reply me back saying that it's a 36 hours straight course and it depends upon you. And I'm like, okay, this is really not answering me. But then slowly, the more I started putting the questions about each and everything, I reached out to many universities. I keep on asking some other things. And slowly I built up a good understanding about how does the program works, whether it's MHA, MPH, any other program. Because this basics is very, very, very daunting to understand, like to understand, okay, how much will be my fees? And they will say, okay, it's going to be $1,000 per grade hours. Okay, I say like, okay, this is not game answer. I need to know like whether it's 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, like what is it that I'm looking to complete this course? But one thing which is important that I can let you know, that is when you're on student visa or F1 visa, it is mandatory for you to have 9 credit hours per semester. And in US, we have 3 semesters. It's spring, summer, and the fall. So in summer, if you don't take classes, that's completely okay. But for spring and fall, you need to have 9 credit hours. Now, different universities may have each course equivalency to the credit hours can be different. Some say that let's say like endo is one course, and then some university can give you 3 credit hours for the same course. Some may give you 4, some may give you 2. So to understand that how many courses you're going to take and each courses will be equivalent to how many credit hours, that's how your total fees is calculated. But this is very important that as a student visa international student, you need to have at least 9 credit hours, which most likely is equivalent to the 3 courses that you're going to take every semester.
And 9 credit hours means it is like 9 hours of some class, and this is 9 credit hours per semester, per credit hours. So how is this decided? 1 credit is for how many hours of lecture? Can you just give some more idea about it?
Absolutely not. So let's say endo is one course, and let's say University of Houston, when you get enrolled in endodontics course, when you finish that course, which will be in 1 semester, you will get 3 credit hours. Basically, like if each course is equivalent to 3 credit hours, that means in that semester I need to take 3 courses in order to fulfill my visa requirement, which will be 9 credit hours. But that's every university. I mean, some university can give you the same course for 4 credit hours. Some may have even 2 credit hours. So that's something you need to really decide. Because your fees is also going to calculate in that way. Let's say you took 3 courses, which will equivalent to 9 credit hours. So your fees will be depending upon that. Okay, you took 3 courses, each credit is like $1,000. So now in that particular semester, you will be paying $9,000 for that, for the entire 3 courses that you have taken. And let's say the program is like 36 credit hours. That means you will have to take, you can do the math, and that's how you get.
Understood. So that's very clear now that you have mentioned a very important point which students should know before, they get student visa. So you mailed many universities and you got to know about this and you decided this is university. How was this application process? Was it like, did you have any interview or you just have to submit the applications online, or there is a separate portal to apply all over the country for this course?
So yeah, most of the universities will fall under the centralized applications. But many times you have the individual universities that has their own applications. So it varies. But the requirement wise, one thing I can tell you that if you're doing an MHA, because it's in the business school, so most of the MHAs will be in the business school. So let's say Kelly is one university, and within Kelly you have dental school, medical school. So the MHA programs falls under the business school. And that time, because it falls in the business school, I was required to have a GRE, which makes it a little bit difficult because we're not really prepared for the GRE. I think other programs you don't need it, but if you're doing MBA from some top-notch schools, then they may need GMAT. So there's a big difference between GMAT versus GRE. That takes a little bit challenging for being a background as a dentist, and it becomes a little bit challenging to get the GRE because we are always prepared for the dental subjects and TOEFLs and all those kind of things. So just keep these things in mind that you may need GRE, which actually helps you in future.
Like, did you prepare in India? Did you take coaching, or you prepared by watching videos?
So this was back in 2015 when I was still trying to understand between dental and MHA. I applied for dental school and I wasn't getting accepted at that time. So I wanted to start something. So I came back to India actually, and I did all the preparation for GRE and TOEFL in Baroda, because I was living over there during my internship time, and I saw a lot of people actually applying for the GRE and TOEFL over there. They had great schools over there. There are a lot of coaching institutes which also helps you for applying to schools. But applying to the schools for the program, that's something that I did by myself. But for coaching, I took some help over there to understand the GRE subjects and to expedite this process. Also, you can do it by yourself also, but when you have some guidance, you can actually try to do it early, especially when you have deadline at early next year. So you want to plan everything out, and that's how I did all my research and everything.
Okay. So you applied. How many days do they take to review your application, and is there any interview for this?
So there's no interview process for my school at least, but they do review all your applications. It will take at least like 1 or 2 months. So obviously it's all. Whenever you have a deadline for any school, it's highly recommend that you submit everything at least 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline, so that they have enough time for you to review everything, send you the acceptance. Once they send you the acceptance, they will send you the I-20. And then once you have I-20, then you need to apply for the visa. So everything in US, you really have to plan at least 6-7 months ahead. So let's say I started my MHA in 2016 January for the spring semester. In order for me to get accepted in 2016 spring semester, I had to complete everything by September, get acceptance, so that I have at least 3-4 months time to apply for the visa. And especially now, actually getting a visa slot is very difficult. So you want to really have at least 6 months margin in your hand to get acceptance, get I-20, apply for the visa, and then book your tickets and move from there. So in my opinion, I think it's very important that you apply as soon as possible, especially if you're planning for spring or summer or fall, depending upon that.
Okay. And how much is the overall expense, including your stay, whatever, other expenses for this Master of Healthcare Administration? Roughly, you can tell us a rough idea.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you a ballpark number. Obviously, it depends upon which city you're staying. New York City is expensive versus California is expensive. But to give a ballpark number, I would say like any program that you're doing masters can range anywhere from 40,000 to 60,000.
60,000 US dollars.
US dollars, yes. And it depends. That's just a fees. On top of that, you will have your living expenses. But many of time in the university, you can do the on-campus jobs that will help you to support a lot, especially in the student life. You can stay with a lot of roommates in that areas, so you will save a lot of money. You can do some on-campus job that will help you to survive. But roughly, the cost of the tuition fees is around $40,000 to $60,000.
Okay, and 40 to 60,000. It's quite a big amount, even in INR. I believe I'm sure there are many students who can finance this, but if you want to get a loan for this, I'm sure many have told me that with co-signer it is easier to get loans for DDS. How about this course? Does it make any difference in your loan application? Is it easier or is it difficult if you apply for finances with a co-signer?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is these courses are expensive. That's the reason. Please do not just take it just because you want to come to US and get accepted into getting a visa thing. I think do the course that will really help you to at least get an OPT so that you can recoup the money if things doesn't work right. Or if it's taking a little bit more time to get accepted, because it did take a little bit more time for me to get accepted. And meanwhile, I was able to do a job because of this career. So please choose something which fits for you and something that you think that you are more interested in. It's more aligning towards your goal, something that you are interested, even if you have to come back to India. Now to answer the question about the finances, it's the same thing. Like if you have a co-signer who is a US citizen or green card holder, then you can get a finances or you can get a private bank loans from the US. But many a time for these kind of courses, people take mostly the loans from India. It's much more easier to get a loan for $40,000, $50,000 in India compared to actually paying it in US, because it's not really easy. Because this is not your mainstream career. Many a times so people try to work it out somehow, getting it from India. Once you get accepted into dental school, then you know that, okay, now you're in a mainstream path, and that's okay if you are trying to, because even if you have a family members who are close family members, this is a big amount. I mean, let's say something happens to you. It's not about that you're not going to pay back, but let's say something happens to you. I mean, everything is going to fall on them.
Actually, I had this question, which I was thinking recently. I don't know, it might look very funny. Suppose happens to you, suppose, worst case was the student, loses his life, something happens, and he is in the first year of the course, and there is 1 year course remaining. Okay, so will the school expect the fees to be paid even after the student has lost his life? I'm sorry to put this way, but this is
that's a very excellent question, because back in is what used to happen. People used to apply for MPH, come here and pay, and because the course for fees for this kind of programs is semester by semester. It depends upon how many classes that you have enrolled in that semester. Let's say you only did like one semester and you got accepted into DDS. Then you don't really have to continue the program. You don't have to pay for the fees of the entire program. You only pay for what you have enrolled in. Actually, in US and domestic student, a lot of people, they complete this course in like 4 years, 5 years, because they take 2 classes, 1 classes. Sometimes they take break, But for international students, it's mandatory to take 9 credit hours. That's the reason I want to specify that. And that helps, that affects your GPA also. When you're taking 1 class or 2 classes per semester, probably you are able to concentrate more and your GPA can be 4.0. But versus when you're taking 3 or 4 classes a semester, then your GPA is going to affect. So that's where, one trick that I will share, like a lot of time when we have our different goals, let's say we want to get accepted in dental school, and so you don't really have to finish the program in 2 years or 3 years. You can try to stretch it out and take the minimum classes that you need to take it just to have your visa active, and then keep trying it. And the day you get accepted into dental school, you can drop into program. However, this have changed a lot. These trends has been changing. I think what I've heard recently, that now many schools for the dental schools, they make sure that you have completed the program before you get accepted. So if you're in the first semester and you're applying for a dental school, and many times they will say, okay, we know that in the past, a lot of people have came over here, they did started the program, but they never finished it because they got accepted in dental school. So now they actually promote and make sure that you're in the last semester or you're about to finish it so that you actually finish the program before you getting accepted into DDS. But yes, we don't have to pay everything if something happens, or if you decide to drop it. If you decide to go back to India also, you only pay for the credit that you have taken. And in the future, if you still plan, let's say after 5 years after DDS, you want to finish this program, you still will have the same credit, and then you can continue with what you have left in.
That's really nice. That means suppose I was doing MPH, then I went and I did my DDS. I can always come back after DDS and do this course which I left in between.
Absolutely. You can even do it along with the DDS. You can take 1 classes, 2 classes, and you can still finish it along with it. So that's a very, yeah. I wish that happens in BDS too.
I really don't know how it works out. When it comes to fees, when somebody loses life, I really don't know. I've never given a thought. But yes, what you're saying is, suppose somebody is enrolled in BDS, he go back to does a degree and come back and want to continue. Maybe there is a news that there is a new curriculum which will be introduced in dentistry. I don't know how it is going to work, but let us have that hope. And it is heard that it is on a credit based, the same system, credit score system. So thank you so much for all this information you have shared till now. Of course, then you decided, okay, you got accepted and you went there. How much is the student strength in each class approximately?
Kind of program, the acceptance rate is very high because not everyone will take all the classes. There will be a lot of domestic students, international students, many of them. So what this program is very different. I think this is very important to mention over here, that even though you have like 50 students in one program, however, you won't be taking all the classes with all 50 people at the same time. Let's say I took endo, probably in that semester you took prosto, maybe some other friend who took perio. And next semester, maybe we took ortho and we both took at the same time. So many times, like it will always happen that you will always have a new friends or new colleagues who are enrolled in this program. Maybe they started 2 years back, they only left with one particular subjects, and that's when you are meeting that person. So to get that idea, like how many people are really in that program is very difficult, but just to get an answer, like most of the schools will accept a pretty high number of the students, international students for these kind of programs. I would say anywhere from like 30 to 40 students.
Okay. So, you mentioned that there are many options for the students. We keep on hearing about Master of Hospital Administration, and this is Healthcare Administration. Can you please tell me some few differences briefly which can make a student understand the basic course of this healthcare administration compared to the hospital administration?
Sure. I mean, so many times a lot of programs have the similar kind of courses. They may have 1 or 2 different courses. Let's say like difference between DDS and DMD. It's technically a same program. It's just that some schools call it DMD, some schools call it DDS. They focus more on the medicine side, and the other schools maybe focus more on the surgery side, as it's DDS and DMD. Same is the difference between MHA and hospital or hospital management. Same is the difference between MBA and healthcare. A lot of people, they do MBA and healthcare. But one thing that I can tell you with my experience, like some of the courses that I took during the MHA is like healthcare, economics, finance 1, finance 2. I took a lot of internship in a hospital, trying to understand how does the healthcare system works in US. So it's not really about dentistry, but you really get to know overall everything about the healthcare, the way that things works over here. The insurance systems, the policies, a lot of legal implications, a lot of licensing process. And the good thing, and this is very important also to mention over here, that actually in these courses, you don't really, so I won't be really able to understand the finance or economics when someone has a dental background for 5 years and then suddenly I'm doing the economics. I won't be really understanding the economics. But what do you really understand about how to network, how to communicate, how to really get your name out there? And those things really help you even in the future when you're applying for the interviews, or even when you're going to the healthcare, that no one can really learn how to communicate or talk or change their personality just overnight because tomorrow I have an interview. So this is a process, and that's how I used to think, that every time, because in this kind of courses, you will have, let's say, you will have a group courses, and let's say you have 5 people, in one group, and now their work is to present that you are planning to open a new hospital, and you need to understand everything. So you need to understand how much is the cost of opening the office or hospital, how many beds do you need, from where you're going to get the equipments, how much the equipment is going to cost, when it's going to be break-even point, when it's going to be you're going to start making, what is the projection, what if things goes wrong, what will be your exit strategy, what are the legal complications or license that you have to apply, and you work in this 5 people group, and then you present in front of everyone. You present in front of every class, in front of all the people in the class. You wear the proper suits. You go as if they are the bank investors, and you're trying to pitch your own project, saying that this is my project, this is what I'm asking for the money for, and this is what my plan is for
like
5 years.
Tank, basically like a Shark Tank.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, it's like one project that I did. I still remember that. I think that was one of my best projects that I did. Was like and this is in 2017. I'm talking about, when I thought like, how about, because everyone in this program were people from the business background. They all had like bachelors in healthcare administration, and my background was different. So it was very difficult for me to understand these subjects. They all were already working in the healthcare field. They all were already working in the hospital. So they really understand all this insurances and medicals and the leadership, all those kind of things, which was very new for me. But so one of the projects that I worked was like in that time was I came up with the idea with my group thing that we are going to have a mobile CPCT van. So we're going to get a van. We're going to put our CPCT, because even though it's US, but I mean, in a downtown area where you have like, let's say 30, 40 general dentists, how many people are really going to buy a CPCT if they don't use it on daily basis? Let's say you have 50 lakhs. Now in business, there's a word called opportunity cost. So you have 50 lakhs, but what is the best that you can do for 50 lakhs? Is it better for you to open a new room, which have a new chair, and probably you will be able to make more money? Or is it better for you to get a CPCT, which you're going to use it probably like 1 or 2 times in a week? So it's not about that people don't have the money, but it's about like, what is the best use that they can do with that money? So I came with the idea that most of the dentists in a downtown area, they already have a limited space. And if they want to even expand it, I mean, probably they will be better off having extra chair rather than buying a CBCT. Unless you are doing a lot of endo cases or lots of implant cases and you use it every day, that's a different scenario. But let's say I'm a general dentist, I do like maybe a couple of implants in a month. So I don't really need to invest my money in buying the CBCT. So we thought like, okay, having a mobile CPCT company, and because it's a mobile, so we don't really have to invest on the on rent or buying a property. We just park it in the parking area. Someone will call us, and this will be, we just only cover like 5 miles radius, not a lot, so we can reach anywhere in 5 minutes. The driver is going to be the technician, so he's the one who's going to drive. He's the one who's going to take the CPCT, and he will drive over there. He will take the CPCT, will send, and we will bill directly to the patient. So this is one, but we came up with a very elaborative idea. Okay, which company van we're going to buy it, how we're going to protect it from the radiation, which CPCT we're going to buy it, when we're going to make the money, when we're going to have how much money do we need, how many people do we need, how are we going to expand it, and what happens if everything goes worse and we are not making money. So what are we going to do? So we will sell it off, or we'll do something about it. So we came up with all this strategy, and till today, like whenever I talk with any of the oral radiologists and I try to tell them about this idea, and they're like, okay, yeah, this is really cool, this is really nice.
I think that example of what you gave clearly will help the student to understand what basically is the Master of Healthcare Administration. How is the visa interview? Because many times the student's visa gets rejected even when they say I'm going to going for DDS. Is it easy for a young unmarried single guy or girl who goes to visa office and says that I'm going for this Master of Healthcare Administration? What is your suggestion to them?
I think my suggestion is like, when you are actually choosing your program by yourself, you dig into so much of it. When your money is at stake, you will really try to get so much information more than what's needed, and that really helps you in the visa interview too. Because when you're going for interview, then you're not going because your friend went over there, or you're not going because everyone is doing MPH or MHA, or I'm doing MHA. You went over there because you really believe in that program. You really believe in that course. You really thought about your finances. You really thought about each and everything that can go wrong, because the big amount of money, as you said. It's usually an option where doing an MDS versus MHA. That's the biggest dilemma, because similar kind of cost if you're doing by donation or applying in a private university in India, and that's the dilemma I was having. Okay, my dad told me the same thing. Okay, I can give you this much amount of money, whether you open your clinic in India, whether you go to US and do MHA, whether you do the MDS, whether you burn it, whatever you want to do it. But after this is my threshold. I won't be able to invest anything more. And when I had that kind of a thing in my head, I was like, okay, I need to do something which is, I have to be absolutely sure what I'm getting into. Like when you make those kind of decisions, it becomes very easy in the interview also. Because now if someone's going to ask me, okay, how are you going to, what is the MHA, or why this university, or why this city, or how are you going to take care of your finances, or are you going to get OPT? How many years of OPT do you get? Is it a STEM OPT? Is it a non-STEM OPT? Like you'll be able to answer a lot of things.
Can you explain a bit about, I think we may have another podcast on that OPT topic itself.
Sure. So most of the master's program, they are either OPT. Every program has 1 year OPT. But if it's a STEM OPT, if it's a STEM program, then you get 3 years of OPT. So basically, OPT means that once you graduate from the program, you are allowed to work in USA with a similar kind of education that you have gained in that program for 1 year. You get a working permit that you can work without the sponsorship for 1 year. But there are some programs which are STEM OPT. That means you get a EAD or allowed to work in the US for 3 years instead of 1 year. I didn't know about that thing, but there are a lot of MPH program, not all MPH program, but there are a lot of MPH program which are STEM OPT. That means you have 3 years that you can stay in US and work for any company without even getting a sponsorship. And also, like if you think in that way, the goal is like, let's say you graduate in June or July and your H-1B process starts in the month of March or April. So if it picks up, well and good. If it doesn't get picked up, then you basically have till June, to figure out something. But if you have 3 years OPT, that means you get multiple chances. Also, that means that you can also convince your employer, even they're not ready to apply for the maybe H-1B in the first year, but they're like, you know what, this person has been working with us for like 1 year. He did an internship with us. I think he's a great asset. Then they will many a time they will go above and beyond to sponsor you, because they think like, okay, now I think you're a valuable person and I think you have contributed a lot to a company. So you get more time to prove yourself when you have 3 years of working permit. That's one way to think about it. The second way to think about it, let's say you couldn't get accepted into DDS and you still want to stay in US. Now you have at least 3 years where you are able to support yourself and you can keep applying for the programs that you want to. Or maybe after that you don't want to, like you like that program, you're doing very well in the career. Maybe you don't want to go with the other, things can change. And the third thing to think about it, in 3 years you'll be able to make enough money to at least recover what you have spent it in the program. If not everything, if not profit, at least you would be at a point that, okay, whatever I spend it, I'm at the same point. Maybe I saved a little bit more. And if I have to go back to India, at least now I have some capital to do something in India. So this is, and this is one more dilemma between masters versus preceptorship, because a lot of people, they also have say, okay, should I do preceptorship or should I do masters? Like, especially if you're doing a 1 year preceptorship, because it will also cost you around the same amount of money, around $30,000. Nothing is wrong and right. I think everything is good. I mean, some people are very, very much motivated to just they don't want to do anything but in dentistry. Preceptorship is great. But for me, it was a different thing. I wanted to have something which gives me a visa for a little bit longer time, so that I can apply for dental school many times, so that if something goes wrong, I can come back to India and still have a secondary career. With MHA, you can, even if you open your own dental office in India, I mean, you now have a business degree. You understand how the business works. You understand how the hiring works. You understand how to have a good working environment. How do you motivate the patients?
Because since it's a foreign degree, also maybe in India it will have a better scope in big hospitals and all.
Absolutely.
Where there is really
100%.
a big role of this business analyst and organizers. Okay.
Yeah, and especially having a clinical background, obviously, if someone is looking for any, like, let's say CEO, or someone who understands the clinical side also, and someone who's trying to manage and build that bridge between the management and the clinical, I mean, then you become a perfect candidate, and your chances of getting hired in India will be also high. You can still do part-time of management and part-time of a dentistry. I mean, that's also an option. So there's a lot of avenues that may open up. Again, this may be more what I'm saying, just theoretical. Maybe the real world is different, but this is what was going in my mind. I was like, okay, I have this much amount of money. What is it that I can make the best out of it? And then I did a lot of research, MBA, MPA. There's something called MPA also, Master of Public Administration, MPH. A lot of people do MPH in dental public health. There are a lot of ways that you can go into it. And there's no right and wrong. Everyone has become succeed some or the other way, whatever path they have chosen it. As long as you're confident about what your decision that you have made, I think that's the most tricky part. Like, to make the decision and what's right for you is something very personal, and that can be different from different people. There are a lot of people who are very good in research, and that's what they like it. That's what they want to invest their life in doing, understand the policies and making a difference in the public level. So for them, MPH is a great option, and maybe they can think of doing an MPH in dental public health, more specific about dentistry. There are people who are doing Masters of Information System, MIS. Now, a lot of people, they want to switch a career, maybe go into machine learning and robotics, and maybe implement that in a dental world, or go for any companies which are hiring you for the, for machine, a lot of healthcare machines are coming up. So every program is okay, every program is great, as long as you understand the pros and cons, as long as you understand what are their options once you graduate. That's the reason we always say use the word called informed decision, and not just a decision. As long as you're very well informed about right and wrong, pros and cons, even when we're doing the dentistry, as long as the patient understand the risk and the benefits, as long as they understand what can go wrong. I mean, you give them options, was the root canal versus implant, extraction versus endo, prognosis of those tooth, as long as they understand it and they make the informed decision, I think that then we are good.
Dr. Mayank, last time, when we did the podcast on residency, there was so much of information, I think, and I thought maybe, we have covered everything, but in today's podcast also, we have come to know so much about things, which overlap both the sides. And I'm really thankful to you for giving such a in-depth information. And I know, maybe when now it is your experience which is speaking it, but as a student, as you said, your father told you that this much money I'm going to give you, at a young age, making such big decisions would have been really uncertain, because we don't know what the future holds. So how, like, you decided, okay, I want to do this Master of Healthcare Administration, but one question always comes in mind is, which students keep on asking me, that after completing this Master of Healthcare Administration, how easy is it to get the job? Suppose, and you are saying that the majority may have 1 year OPT, which will allow them to work for only 1 year. So how easy is to get job, and can you just give some information about that?
Absolutely, Doc, and I really want to be very honest with this answer, rather than giving a unrealistic answer. Getting a job is still easy, but getting a sponsorship is difficult. You can get a job if you don't need a sponsorship, because it's a very good program. Most of the big hospital, I mean, not many of you will know, but Texas Medical Center is one of the biggest medical centers, not only in US but in the world. The medical tourism was started in Texas Medical Center. MD Anderson, which is the #1 cancer hospital in the world, is actually in Texas Medical Center. So it's a big place with a lot of hospitals, and a lot of hospitals are like in the top 10 in their field. They have Texas Children, which is #3 in the US. They have cardiovascular, which I mean, the person actually got a Nobel Peace Prize for getting a artificial heart transplant and everything over there. So getting a job is still, so this is a field that not only just a lot of international students are applying it, but a lot of domestic students is actually applying it, and you make a very good career in it. There are people who have become CEO, CFO, and they all need to have masters, this masters, in order to get a promotion. However, so getting a job is one thing. You can still get a job, because schools will help you out and everything. But then getting a sponsorship is when it becomes tricky. When you have more supply, and again, I think this is coming from a business background. When you have more supply, even though you have a good demand, but still when you have a more supply where people are already, we don't need to spend money for the H-1B sponsorship, then they get a little bit more edge over compared to you. And especially when you don't have a background from business side. I know some of my friends who got a sponsorship, they got accepted, but they also had MBA in the background. They work in their whole background was in the business side of it. So that was something add-on for them to doing the healthcare administration, because they want to switch the career from the maybe textile industry to the healthcare administration, or to the oil and gas industry to the healthcare industry. But for us, it was difficult a little bit. And again, as I said, like getting a job, I mean, there's a lot of things that it's a whole different new world. Just like in dental, we have IDA, and then we have Endodontic Society, Prosthodontic Society. There are different societies among the healthcare administration. There's a finance society, there's a healthcare leadership society. So you have to get involved with them, volunteer with them. Really, networking is everything over here. I mean, people get job not because you have great GPA or because you were attending the classes, everything, or you have 100% attendance. It's just because how you are able to put their name outside, out there. And that's the key. And it took me a lot of time to learn that. Because as an Indian, we always come. I was sincere. We all are sincere. We sit together. We will have a great score. But then initially, I don't really used to participate a lot in the class discussions, because I'll wait for my exam. In exam, I'll give the exam. I'll get great scores, and I'll be happy. But the what you really learn in this program is to really how to communicate, is to really how to understand a networking process, and that will help you with dentistry
too, because that's the whole goal when you attend the conferences. You meet a lot of people. How you really get your name out there? How do you make sure that someone remembers you, that you met someone in last year one conference? So getting a job is still okay, but getting a sponsorship is difficult. So what I was trying to tell with the more supply and demand thing is like in a Houston area, in a bigger city where you already have like 3-4 university which is giving you the international MHA program, getting a job over there has become tricky. And because yes, there are so many domestic students too. But if you're applying for rural areas, smaller areas where there's a big hospital but they don't find anyone who wants to move over there, probably that's the area where you'll be able to get a sponsorship in a better way. Now I want to share my journey. What I did is, so after I did my MHA and I was still in a process of applying to Rochester, I had interview and I knew that I'm getting there. I was close. I could feel it that I'm there. I need to stretch myself a little bit more. And somehow I was very active in MHA2. I was a president for one of the student organization. I got 2 awards during that time at the university level, which I never did in my. I was very bad in India, but I did great in that time, the best I can, because there was a lot of things at stake at this point. Like I didn't just want to do MHA. I had to improve my GPA. This is the way that I was able to improve my GPA for my profile. So there was a lot of things that was linked with this program, and also I wanted to get a backup career. So the point is like I started working for one of the dental corporate group actually. I graduated my MHA. I started with one of the dental corporate group who had like around, I think 20 or 23 offices in Texas areas. Because I thought like this would be a great fit for me. I am using my dental skills. I'm going to learn about the dental management, and that is what something is going to make me unique when I'm going to go for the application. Because every day I was going for application, they were asking me for the experience, and as I was trying to explain that I cannot get a dental experience in US because I don't have a work permit. But I said like this is what going to make me different, because everyone in the AEGD program, they have a huge experience. They all were like great residencies from their country, have worked for like 10 years, 15 years. And I was like, how do I increase my chances? And this was like awesome for me, because I when the third time when I went for interview for AEGD, and I said the same thing. I said like, you may have a lot of residents of or students over here who have a great oral surgeon, prosto endo, but how many candidates do you have who understand the business side of dentistry in US? And in US, you don't really make money directly from the patient, because we don't charge the patient. We charge the third party, which is insurance. To understand that loop, that it's not that you work more harder and you make more money. It's not really works like that. Many times we can do a lot of procedures over here, but we don't do it just because the time that I'm going to take to do a molar endo, probably I can do 4 fillings, which is more predictable for me. It's within the scope of my experience. And just refer the patient to the endodontist. He will do the endo, and the patient will come back, and I'll do the crown on him, which I can finish it in a much faster way. To understand these things, because as a international dentist, we always the way we have been trained is like we want to do everything, and we want to excel in each and every procedures, which is good, which is great. But then you also understand the business side of it. So I learned a lot about those kind of things. I was literally working in a front desk. I was a regional manager. I was managing 2 dental offices at the time, and I learned so much from that place that it's even, I mean, many times those dots are not connected, but everything got connected later on. So when I got accepted in residency, I became a teaching assistant. When you're good in something, like let's say you have a background as an endodontist and you got accepted, so they will make you a teaching assistant to help other colleagues to help you with endos. So I became a teaching assistant for the practice management course, which is a core course, not only for the general dentistry, but all the specialties. So when you say core course, that means all the specialties has to take those courses. I became a teaching assistant. I used to take lectures for all the residencies, whether it's oral surgery, prosto, endo, all the departments they had it. And I took almost like 3 or 4 lectures every semester. And then being a teaching assistant, a lot of people used to ask about contracts, because it's during my dental corporate job, I used to even hire dentists. I had experience over hiring a dentist. I understood how does the financial thing works when you get hired. Is it on salary, or is it on percentage basis, or is it in both, or do you have a daily minimum, or you have profit sharing? There's a lot of things that becomes very confusing, and I was doing that every day. I was calling the insurance. I was understanding how the benefits works, what is deductible, what is copay, what is annual.
Why sponsoring is so difficult? Is it? Can you just tell me like how much money does it cost to sponsor? Why are people not alone? Don't sponsor the jobs. What does it cost them?
So sponsoring for H1B, it's not just about the cost that the employer has to pay, but it's also about, because they have to report to the government that why are they sponsoring an international student when they have someone available with a similar kind of background in US. They also have to submit their entire company profile, their finances, their income tax. So there's a lot of things, not just about the money. There's a lot of bigger aspect that's involved when you are actually sponsoring someone. But with my job with the dental corporate group, I mean, they were willing to sponsor me. So although the reason why I'm sharing that, because I literally don't know any single person who did this kind of program and actually went to a dental office and work as a practice manager, because everyone, when they graduate with MHA and when you're looking into big hospitals and big positions, you keep on trying for those positions, and I was also trying for those positions. I'll be honest, I had some options, but they were not lucrative. Some of the other things were the problems. Then I just thought about it. I said, like, okay, what is it that I can do the best? And then I happened to find a dental corporate, and they were looking for this kind of experience, and I was perfect fit. They're like, okay, you understand the clinical side of it. If you are in the office, my dentist doesn't have to spend a lot of time explaining the treatment. You can just go and explain the treatment, and he can move and do the treatments, because you always have a treatment coordinator over here who explains the different processes, what is different between cleaning versus deep cleaning versus a simple cleaning, or amalgam versus composite, those kind of small things. So and I thought about it, like, yeah, I think I never thought about it that this would be great, like even though you get much lesser than what you could have made in a hospital industry, but then I was like, okay, I think this is perfect. They're willing to sponsor me the visa, and I will learn a lot about a different side of dentistry, which I've never seen it, and probably it will help me in future too if I try to open my office, or if I mean, right now, like, I'm working for Aspire Dental, and they have two different positions. One is called managing clinical director, which is like a lead dentist, and the second is associate dentist. Is definitely difference in the cost and the finances and responsibilities. I'm hired as a managing clinical director because I also responsible not only the clinically, but also to mentor the associate dentist, and also to help the office run properly or understand operations. So I can communicate with the regional managers, with my managers, understand the numbers, how to reduce your overheads. Many times you're not making a lot of money, but you can reduce your overhead, and that will increase your profit. So a little bit small understanding, but that plays a very important role. And I think in the current job also, when I told them, they were not. I mean, right now when I was talking with my owner, and I said, like, okay, what is it that you remember about me during my interview? He said, like, I remember only one thing, that you have a business background. And that's something that intrigued me a lot, because yes, at that level, everyone is doing a dentistry, everyone's graduating with residency. But what is it that again made me a little bit different from others was that having a background in a business, and I actually worked at a ground level. When you start any general dentist wants to start an ortho or prosto or pedo. I mean, their billing is different. Like ortho, you get on you don't get paid everything upfront. You get paid every premium every monthly if it's 2 year if it's a 2 year treatment. So those things actually helped me a lot. And getting the sponsorship is not that easy because company has to really show a lot of things. That's the reason when you typically apply for a bigger company, because they have a legal department. Their numbers are very transparent. They have been doing that very long time.
But how many people, suppose there are 10 students who apply to this Master of Healthcare Administration, how many of them do you think will end up getting a sponsorship job?
I'll say the chances are 50%, not more than that. It's not 70, 80 or 90%. The chances are 50%. But one thing I also want to tell you, that once you come here and once you go through that struggle, and when you understand that this is do and die situation, you will find out some of the other way. I mean, there are people who complete the MHA and they do other program. Or again, I know it's financial issues, but then they will figure out some finances also. They will work so hard for 1 year, in that 1 year time, to convince the employer to make sure that they apply for the sponsorship. Because even the applying is one thing, then sponsorship is a lottery thing also. So even though sometimes your your employer may apply for your sponsorship, but it doesn't get picked up, then you look for non-for-profit because you don't need to apply for lottery doing the non-for-profit. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, you will figure it out eventually. I mean, I've not seen someone really coming back to India, but yes, I've seen that doing that phase of struggling. I think that's the hardest phase to survive over here during that time, and then there's no way that you can come back also, because you have spent too much of money that you just cannot come back like that. Yeah. So you will. I mean, I think I always feel like most of the people who have succeeded over here are the people who have been hustlers. I think that's the difference that I feel between India and US. Like when you're in comfort zone, I mean, you asked me initially why MHA. So I mean, many of my friends, and you asked me the responsibility. It's a big decision at that young age to take that decision to the MHA. Many of my friends were applying for MBS. Everyone was actually applying for MBS. I think one thing I was very clear that I know I won't be getting accepted in a government school, and I just didn't feel like, not that I still paid over here the same amount of money, but I just didn't feel like that. I don't know, something that stopped me, that okay, I think I thought like, okay, everyone is applying for prosto or oral surgery, paying the same amount of money probably, or lesser or more. But I was like, okay, I'm just not getting convinced with that thing. Maybe I want to try something which I think maybe I'll be better off if I'm not able to get accepted in the MBS program.
What would be average salary for anyone who gets a sponsor as a Master of Healthcare Administrator?
Somewhere around $50,000 would be a good pay to start with. 50, 60 would be a good pay. That's a normal 60,000 as an average, 60 to 70,000 as an average salary. So you're going to start somewhere around like 50, 55. Obviously, you're going to start with the entry level position, and then eventually you will make your way up. Again, then you will set up your new goals, and you will work it out to move up in the ladder. But that's something a realistic number I wanted to give it to you. Like with my dental corporate group, I was making a little bit lesser than that, but then that was the best option that I had at that time, so I chose that.
So one last time question to end this amazing podcast. What are the, if you suppose you forget that you don't want to join dentistry after your Master of Healthcare Administration, what is the next goal for that person after finishing so that he can continue in the same field at a higher level?
When I was in my last semester of MHA doc, I mean, I was almost certain that probably I will be sticking with this particular field. So what I started doing is like I started looking for again jobs in either dental corporate group, and I thought like I'm going to make my way up in that field if I get my sponsorship and everything into place, or I'll keep on applying for the medical positions in medical hospitals. And the third option, which is also I was very much convinced and was happy with it, was that there were a lot of actually hospital groups that were coming to Texas medical centers. They were coming because there's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of techniques and everything is going on, and I got in touch with them. There are some faculties in these kind of programs which are actually very well connected in India. They will do a lot of conferences in India. They will invite them, and you can pass. So I got in touch with some of the big hospital chains in India, and I was in touch with them, including my mother's own hospital where she was getting a treatment. I reached them out, and I was happy because they were paying me a decent amount of money. To quote that number was around like 5 figures, 6 figures, I would say. Like, and I was like, okay, fine. This is enough if I stay in a two-tier city, if not in a metro city, but in a mid-tier city. I think I'll be okay. And if I still have continued passion for dentistry, maybe then something I can still do it. So this was my goal. If things would not have worked in a right way, because in US, like if you are sacrificing too much, and we are sacrificing a lot when we come from India to US. India is not a bad country; it's a great country. But it only makes sense in US to stay if you're making a great amount of money. And then you can say, yes, at least I've sacrificed a lot of things, but I'm making to a point where I'm doing great in US. Not only comparing yourself with the Indian finances, but comparing yourself with the US standards. Because now you're in US, you don't want to compare that. Okay, I'm making great money compared to India or compared to my friends in India. But that's not a great comparison. Now your expenses are in US dollars. You're paying the taxes in US dollars. There's no point of comparing me with someone who's in India. They're living their life the best they can in India according to their standards. So then I know, like, okay, if I'm not making like that amount of money in US, then probably I'll be better off in India with my family, maybe making a little bit lesser, but then at least I have a good career with MHA. And I thought like it's the same amount of money, let's say I've spent in MDS, So I thought like, okay, because again, do MDS or do a master's or do anything, if you really understand the program and you like it. I'm not saying you have to be very passionate about it. I think that takes a lot of more time to understand the in-depth, but at least have a little bit of some gut feeling that, okay,
I think this whatever podcast we have conducted was really amazing. So much to learn from you, and it is always nice to hear you speak your hearts out and your experiences. I'm sure this course Master of Healthcare Administration can also give the students opportunity to work in different countries, maybe in Middle East, if not even in India. So that I believe that option is always there. Thank you so much, Dr. Mayank, and it's amazing to listen to you as always. And it has been a pleasure listening to your experiences today on the second podcast. Viewers, do check his first podcast on Aspire32, which is about the residency in United States. Thank you, Dr. Mayank.